Hey everybody, thanks for joining me today. I'm Danny Barker with eXp Realty here in San Diego, California. I work with veterans across the United States, helping them build long-term wealth through real estate. My niche is helping people put together a strategy before they go buy and before they go make those purchases with their VA loan so that they understand not only the house that they're buying, but they understand the investment side of the house that they're buying as well. So before we get started, I want to make a quick disclaimer. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a CPA. I'm not here to give you legal advice. I'm simply a real estate agent sharing a real situation that one of our buyers experienced and some lessons that I hope that you can avoid doing the same thing. All right. So today's topic is buying multifamily properties. If you've watched my channel before, you know for certain that the VA loan used to buy a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex is one of the highest and best uses of the VA loan. You can live in one of the units, you can rent the other units out, you can have tenants help offset your mortgage, build equity over time, and hopefully build wealth for your family. But there is one thing that many buyers overlook when they're using it to buy a multifamily property. When you're buying these multifamily properties, you're not just buying the building, you're buying the business, you're buying the income stream, you're buying that income stream that what if that income stream is not what was advertised? So they give you, hey, we have this 4-on-1, and in this scenario, we're at 2,000, 2,100, and 1,800, and then a vacant unit for you to live in. So when you actually move in and actually take ownership, in this scenario, this buyer found that the two people who were paying rent were paying 1,600, not 2,000, 2,100, or 1,800, and that the third person hadn't even made their rent payment in a couple of months. So what is there to do to protect yourself? I mean, just think about it for a minute, right? We're buying a property. The amount that it's collecting in rent on the other units is very important. So what is there to protect us from being lied to? Because anybody, a real estate agent and a seller could get together and put out any information they want, right? They are on the hook for it being true, but it's an arduous path to get that corrected after you've taken ownership. So if you're expecting one amount of rental income every month, but after you close, you discover the property is producing significantly less, and not it's not a small detail. It's your cash flow. It changes your return on investment. It changes how much reserves you should have and where you're keeping it and how you're going to build your reserves. How long is it going to take you to save up that amount of money before you can comfortably move out? It changes your long-term financial plan, changes how long you're planning on living in it. It's a completely different investment at a certain point. So how do buyers try to protect themselves from situations like this? One of the most important documents in a multifamily transaction is what's called an Estoppel certificate. That's Estoppel. If you look that up, go to your AI and have them describe it to you and really get a deeper understanding of it. I'll kind of give you the broad strokes right now. So if you've never heard of the word estoppel, don't worry. Most people haven't. In an estoppel, the certificate is completed by the tenants, right? It's signed by the tenants. Its purpose is to confirm that the tenant understands their lease and that the ownership is being changed. So you're, instead of paying this person, you're going to be now paying that person. Typically, it verifies all of these things here. I'll read you the list: the monthly rent, the security deposit, whether the rent is current, whether there are prepaid rents, whether there are side agreements with the landlord, and whether there are any disputes between landlords and tenants, right? So think of it like this. The seller can advertise his version. The lease has the written version of all of these agreements, and the tenant has their version that they're actually living every single day of every single month that they're paying to borrow those four walls for that 30 days. And if that hits you in the heart because you're renting right now, contact me. We'll get you a plan and we'll figure out when is the first time and the best time for you to become a homeowner. Okay, so the estoppel is intended to help the buyer compare all three sets of data. So it brings all of the information together on one document Now you can now take all of the other documentation and even one step further. I'll get into it later. You should probably be talking to the tenants. So in this situation, questions arose right after closing when he went to move in and met his neighbors and met his tenants, right? About whether the information that was reflected on the estoppel and the lease matched what the tenants were actually paying. I hear from the buyer that there's suspicion that the tenants have told him that they don't remember the documents being filled out. The estoppel may have been signed allegedly while it was blank. So imagine you're the tenant and they ask you to sign this document. You don't think much of it because he's selling the property and it's not your job to know what's going on, right? So they sign these blank documents allegedly, and then the seller can allegedly fill in whatever he wants and then sell the property for a higher price to our buyer. So there are real financial, problems that can come from this. So I'm not here to accuse anyone of wrongdoing, right? I wasn't present when the documents were prepared. Only the seller was. Maybe the listing agent was there too. Who knows? Let's hear their side of the story. And I don't know everyone's side of the story. So we got to hear it, right? What I do know is when important financial documents don't match reality, buyers can suffer real harm. And that's exactly why due diligence is so important. Now, I want to take a minute and speak directly to any tenants that are watching this video right now. If your landlord ever asks you to sign an estoppel certificate, please understand that someone may be getting ready to spend a significant amount of money in the change of ownership of this property. And based in part with the information that you're going to be signing. So read every line, verify that the monthly rent is correct, verify that the security deposit is documented, because that's another thing. I asked him, did the seller transfer the security deposit monies to you? And he said there was no security deposits. So that might have been something that the tenants could have caught there too. So verify whether you're current or whether your tenants are current or behind on their rent. Verify whether you're paying for the landscaping or they're paying for landscaping, utilities, or anything else that's different from this lease. If something isn't accurate, don't sign it as the tenant. Please don't sign it. Your signature tells everyone else that this information is true. That requires you to take this responsibility seriously. Now, I get it. You don't owe anybody anything at this point. All you owe is the amount of money that you agreed to pay per month. But check it out. If you sign a lease with me for $1,600, I sell the property and I fraudulently tell the buyer that you're paying $2,000. I'm not sure how stable your housing is at that point because you allowed for me to manipulate that situation, right? So now let's talk about what the buyers can do to protect themselves, right? First, don't rely solely on the listing agent, or the seller. Marketing remarks are exactly what they sound like. It's just marketing. It's just to get you to come see the property in person. Once you see the property in person, all the little stuff kind of falls away. Some of the minor negatives start getting outweighed by those major positives that was only experienced when you showed up. So they want you to show up. So the marketing might be exaggerated or inflated. They might be saying that market rents are $2,000, $2,100 and this, right? The words matter. Market rent in that description means that they're calling out what the rents should be. Actual rents is they're claiming that they're collecting those actual rents. Second, get copies of all the leases. Go over them. Request the estoppel certificates be delivered early in the investigation period, not at the end of escrow when you have no further contingencies, which I don't know how it works in all 50 states. I'm licensed in California, but I know that the investigation contingency comes back to play even after the buyer has removed that contingency. If new information is presented, it's right back into play. So in this scenario, when we got the estoppels on the last day of escrow, right? I wasn't there, obviously. I wasn't their agent. I wish they were there. I wish I was there. I wish they were with my network. But here's the thing. When we get into the mix of it, this documentation was presented on the final day of escrow, the day before it becomes his, right? He needed to be able to say, pause, let me go over this, let me confirm this, right? So you've got to compare the advertised rents, the leases, and the estoppels all into one. That's the fourth thing you can do for yourself. If those three things don't agree, stop and figure out why they don't agree before you decide to move forward, right? Fifth, ask for the rent ledgers or proof of funds being deposited. They can give you your bank statements showing you that 2100, 2000, and 1800 came in for the last 6 months, the last 3 months, whatever you ask for. If the seller refuses to give it, then take that into consideration, right? A rent ledger shows the payment history for each tenant. This would be more of a document that would come from the property manager if there's a property management company involved. All right, so 6, ask for proof of recent rent deposits if appropriate for your transaction. Verify that the money being collected matches the income you're expecting to purchase at the price that you're purchasing at. 7th, if appropriate and permitted during your investigation period, introduce yourself to the tenants. You don't need to interrogate everyone. Just go have respectful conversations. Ask the simple questions. Is your rent current? How much are you paying in rent? Who pays the utilities? Who's doing the landscaping and who pays for the landscaping? How long have you lived here? How long do you plan on living here? Right? Sometimes a 5-minute conversation will reveal so much information that stacks and stacks and stacks of paperwork won't do, right? It'll never get that done. So here's the biggest lesson that I hope you take away from this video. Just as much as we want to inspect the property, we want to investigate the business, right? Just as much as we have an inspector come in and confirm the condition of certain things in that property, we can also ask for documentation and proof that the business is operating per what the seller is selling it as, right? Everybody remembers to inspect the roof, the plumbing, the electrical system, the foundation, the water heater, the pipes and the yard and the drainage, right? But it's so uncommon that for the real estate agents and the buyers, normal real estate agents, to be buying multi-unit properties, that they forget that they're buying a business and they don't remember to inspect the income. So please remember to inspect that business. Please remember to inspect the income. All right, when you're buying the rental property, the income deserves just as much attention as the building itself, because once you close on that property, the problems become yours. Watch my previous videos. I talk all the time about how the sellers are selling you their problems. It's your job to do your due diligence to figure out what those problems are. And there's some cases where the seller doesn't even know the problem exists, but it's still going to be yours whether he knew it or not, right? So I still believe that multi-unit properties are like the highest and best use of your VA loan to build wealth, especially if you're looking at generational wealth. But wealth isn't built by just buying properties. It's built by buying the right properties at the right price, at the right time, and a lot of times, right? So slow down, verify everything, ask your questions, do your due diligence. And if something doesn't add up, don't be afraid to hit the pause button until you understand what's going on. This is about to be yours. In this scenario, he got the documentation and a day later it was his, right? That is not okay. It's not acceptable. It's not nice and it's not cool. So if you're thinking about buying a duplex, a triplex, a fourplex, anywhere in the country, I'd be happy to help connect you with the experienced professionals who understand these transactions and how to protect the buyers throughout the process. Thanks for watching this video, you guys. I appreciate you, and I'll see you on the next one. And remember that nothing ever goes as planned, but those without a plan cannot build wealth. Wealth is built by those who have one. All right, y'all. See you on the next one.